There are towns across the country which are just weeks away from day zero, when there will be no water left. By November, Stanthorpe, Dubbo, Nyngan, Warren, Narromine and Cobar will run dry. By March 2020, Parkes, Forbes, Cowra, Manila and Boggabri will all be out. Warwick will reach day zero this time next year.
Welcome to the Qatarat Al Nada, ECOLOBLUE water station. This water station generates 400,000 litres of potable water every day from the humidity in the air. This is the first atmospheric water station in the world.
Now, here at home across our country, several towns are preparing for what's being called Day Zero. It's when they will completely run out of water. One of those towns is Warwick in southeast Queensland, and today's Jessica Millwood met with locals to see just how they're coping.
There are many words to describe this drought. Heartbreaking is just one.
Put a lot of effort into reading a good article, and to see him go off to meat works, not good. Hey mate.
This is one of 4 dams on Paul Maher's Warwick property. They're all bone dry. How long's this been dry for?
Well, a good 5 months now.
Paul is a 4th-generation farmer. This is the worst drought his family has ever seen.
Thanks to all of you at home, Moses West is closer to helping hurricane victims in Puerto Rico. He's the Army Ranger who has technology to capture a large amount of clean, usable water from the air to help people all around the world. And he wants to show it to you before he heads out on his first big mission.
They can understand about the third source of water, the most abundant, pure source of water. This container, this one machine, can make 8,400 liters of water a day, depending on the conditions that you have.
Water. Good old H2O. But why do we call it that? Well, really because water is a compound made of 2 gases. One of them is oxygen, it's in the air that we breathe. The other is hydrogen, which is an explosive gas. But if you put them together and you do combine them, you end up with water, H2O. It's really as if you could magnify that and see the tiny particles of which water is made. If you did, you'd see they were like this. You would have an oxygen atom, and you'd have a hydrogen atom, and another one. And because there are 2 hydrogens for every oxygen, we say it's 2 H's or H2O. And that's really the compound of water.
Video I'm going to talk about water, a polar molecule. What does it mean to be polar? It means that you have a charge. The electrons are shared unequally. And as a result of that, water has these amazing behaviors that allow us to survive on our planet. And so let's start by looking at one water molecule. It's made up of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms. And what you should know is that oxygen is highly electronegative. What does that mean? It's going to pull electrons towards it. And if we were to look at those levels here on the periodic table, aside from fluorine, it's going to be the highest one there. Periodic table to get electronegativity increases, and so oxygen's really high. It's pulling the electrons of hydrogen closer to it, and so what you get is a partial positive and a partial negative charge. In other words, the oxygen's always going to be negative, and then the hydrogen's always going to be positive. And so you can think of it almost like a magnet. There are going to be poles or 2 sides to it. And just like magnetic fields move out around the magnet, you can imagine these imaginary fields around the water molecule as well. And so on the top, where the hydrogen is, we're going to have positive charges, and then on the bottom, we're going to have negative charges. And so imagine trying to put a bunch of magnets together like this and just holding them there. Now you know that those similar poles are going to repel each other, and so if you were eventually to let go, it would quickly shift to a shape like this, where south meets north and north meets south. The same thing would occur with water. If we put water molecules like this, all of these negative charges of the oxygen molecules are going to repel each other, so it'll quickly orient itself like this. And so water will always be oriented so the positive of the hydrogen and the negative of the oxygen are attracted to each other. And so what do we call that attraction between these? We call those simple hydrogen bonds. And so the hydrogen bond would be represented with these dotted lines. It's an attraction between the positive hydrogen and the negative oxygen. Sometimes we'll see hydrogen bonding with nitrogen as well.
And guess what happens when lightning hits the water? You create the fourth state of water. And guess what happens when you drink that water? Mega plants, big tomatoes. So these things right now are available for us to get, healed. Like this fourth state of water I'm telling you about. So, we have lots of technology that is suppressed, and we have a lot of technology that's not. Because
I made a video showing that if you take a grape and cut it almost completely in half and put it in the microwave, you can make some plasma.
Oh, go the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's still going.
But the explanation we had in that video was lacking. This was me and my friend Dr. Stephen Bosey, a fellow physicist. 3 scientists have published an explanation in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They studied this effect with high-speed cameras, thermal cameras, electromagnetic modeling, and they came up with an explanation that I think is pretty satisfying. And scientists showed you don't even need to use a grape. You can get the same effect with hydrogel water beads. These are those tiny polymer beads which, when you soak in water, they increase in volume like 100 times.
Plasma is the fourth state of matter. You have solids, you have liquids, you have gases, and then you have the plasma phase. And to give an example of plasmas, well, our sun is a plasma. And fire is a plasma, it's an ionized gas. And the northern light is also a plasma. And you probably all know the plasma television, in which plasma technology is used to create an image on the screen. As a matter of fact, 99% of all matter in the universe is in the plasma phase, so there is a lot of plasma around.
it's purified water where they run plasma gas through it, and it changes the structure of the water, the molecular structure. And they've had some miraculous things, this water hydrates 10 times more than water. So you only need to drink that much of the bottle, regular water bottle, to get the same hydration. So the military is adapting it and doing some testing now because it cuts down the packs for the soldiers. Those are sometimes 80-pound packs that these guys. By eliminating all that and still having the same hydration, imagine, how much farther you could run and not have all this weight, or imagine, how you wouldn't have to take as much water on a deep space exploration using gas combustible rockets. So in the 3D, this is where it's going.
You see tomato plants, they were seeded at exactly the same time, given the same amount of water. Well, the right one got normal tap water, the other one the same tap water, but only treated with plasma. So the crops, they really like plasma activated water. They grow much faster, are much healthier, And well, that was quite amazing. And we also found out that by using plasma activated water instead of those chemical pesticides, well, you don't leave the residues that the pesticides do.
Clean drinking water, a natural resource we often take for granted near the Great Lakes. But Moses West knows a water crisis is quietly growing.
Everybody knows we're running out of water.
A problem the retired ranger spent the past 4 years working to eliminate.
All the water that we need it exists right here in the air.
He believed so strongly in that idea. In 2015, West invented an atmospheric water generator, or AWG, a machine that takes in air and turns it into drinking water.
We're at the place now, I think, making 50, 100, 200, 250,000, a million gallons of water at an incredibly low energy consumption. I think cheaper than groundwater by far. Cheaper than desalination.
So far, 12 of these AWGs exist. West planted them in 3 areas, including the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, and Flint, Michigan.
I need to engage with the people here, and I need to show them what this machine does, and they need to understand that it is their machine, and I am here for them.
West says his AWGs are federally approved, and the water quality is also tested by the Colorado Water Authority.
You can do it!
Let's get started with the features and specifications of this unique water station. The Qatarat Al Nada ECOLOBLUE water station consists of 52 units of the ECOLOBLUE 10,000 atmospheric water generators. The units are contained within a space of 83 meters wide and 160 meters long. This is a total land space of 13,500 square meters.
People are pretty resilient, but this is starting to take its toll.
I know you'd be aware of the amount of towns around the district that don't have any water. People are sending water to those towns. I mean, you can't imagine that, can you? At some point you turn your tap on and there's nothing there.
Yeah, only in the last couple of days I was taking my dad for a look around, and Dad's 86. He's been here all his life and he's never seen it to this point.
Fresh drinking water. Without it, the world is doomed. And the scary fact is, there just isn't enough of it.
Up to 2 billion people around the world lack access to clean drinking water. But this Israeli machine could change that. It literally makes clean water out of thin air. Bottoms up. Now this is the scary part. In 2025, it's estimated that 2/3 of the world won't have access to clean drinking water. That's just 6 years from now. 6 years!
The Israeli company WaterGen says they have the solution. Their technology captures humidity in order to make drinking water out of air. Then it cleans and adds the minerals necessary to make the water safe to drink.
This machine can serve around 2,500 people. This machine is making around 900 liters of pure drinking water. We have here the pipe that is going down to the offices and providing to the offices the drinking water. We install the dispensers in the offices, in the meeting rooms, and you can drink it in the building.
This is a very personal story, one that affects every country family, families like my own. It affects every farmer, farmers like my father. It's called drought. Right now we're in the middle of another one. Country people have endured and survived droughts before. But this one, they're saying, is the worst one yet.
Drought's a very cruel thing, you know, it just creeps up. It's like a cancer and just eats away at people and eats away at land. I've never seen so many cattle dead. I've never seen farmers had to shoot so many stock. And I've never seen so many people just emotionally upset, mate. They're just buggered, just had enough. I don't know what's going to happen.
People were shooting their sheep because the cost of the bullet was cheaper than the cost of transporting them into town, and then they had to dig holes to bury them. Yeah, because it was so drastic that they were worth nothing and that you couldn't feed them.
That would have been tough on Dad.
Well, it's very tough but they're bred like that, these farmers. They go through good and bad and droughts and floods, and they know that's the way it's got to be.
I believe it was in like 1982 or 86. There was a scientist named Paul Leveille, I believe his name was, and he was postulating that our solar system was moving into a more energetic part of the galaxy, out of the protection of some other stars and out to where more cosmic rays were going to hit us. And as those cosmic rays come in, they come into our sun, and they also come into the Earth. And as they come into the Earth, they begin to heat the center of the Earth more. And as it's heating, you begin to see more energetic storms on the surface, which we've seen. You begin to see volcanoes starting to pop, which we're starting to see.
We begin with the tragedy unfolding in New Zealand, where it's now been confirmed Australians are among the missing and the dead after a volcano erupted on White Island.
5 people have been killed, with fears for many more, including Australians, after a volcanic eruption in New Zealand's Bay of Plenty. The eruption occurred on White Island just after 2 p.m. local time. It's believed more than 20 Australians were on the island at the time. More than 30 people from one cruise liner, the Ovation of the Seas, are still unaccounted for.
A selfie shows Alessandro, who is filming, hard hat on, along with glasses and a face mask. Others around him are kitted out too. About a dozen of the sightseers continue to climb to the crater. Next scene, they're milling, looking relaxed, just a few steps from the edge of what looks like a pond of steam.
It was a lot smaller, obviously, when it first started. Basically what happened, the creation of this was caused by the magma chamber coming up very close to the surface, flowing or busting through here. It burst out on the right hand side over there, and there's a watercourse runs down the southern side, the northern side of the inner crater. The crater lake level sat there for about 2 years.
They walk between copper-coloured rocks that are stained bright yellow at their edges. Water flows between them. It's green.
A little bit worried what's going green.
You can hear hot water puddles bubbling. The video jumps ahead and they're back near the sea. It's utterly picturesque as they reach the jetty. The pickup boat's heading in to collect them. The camera does a complete 180 and catches the stragglers bringing up the rear before it tilts down to Alessandro's watch. It's about 11 minutes to 2. 22 minutes before White Island goes up. This tour group makes it safely back to their boat.
Man,
that's terrifying. You can't tell your mum. You can't tell your mum this happened.
No. Man, look. Jeez.
Are you gonna be okay?
Motor a safe distance away before appearing to double back. The boat that had been anchored alongside them is still there, glazed in ash. The camera moves to the jetty on the island. You can just make out a group clustered there. A call goes out to Coast Guard and passengers can be heard asking for inhalers.
You got your name on my video, right?
Using photography software, Sam and the crew were able to create the first virtual environment of a real volcano, enabling volcanologists around the world to undertake virtual field research for the very first time.
That's 1,200 feet. That's the vertical height of the Empire State Building.
further down, you want so badly to take your mask off, but it's just impossible. You take one breath of that superheated gas and that's the end.
The team also wanted to collect lava samples to understand how life could exist in extreme environments on our planet and beyond. And the only way to do that was down. Sam descended a harrowing 1,200 feet to get closer to the crater. But to reach the molten lava, he had to put on a custom-built industrial proximity heat suit so he could withstand the temperatures, which exceeded 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit from only 10 meters away.
Plasma gives neon and fluorescent lights their glow, is formed during lightning strikes, and of course is present in plasma televisions. Chemists also classify fire as a plasma. Plasma makes up our sun and is visible in the solar flares that erupt from its surface. Because plasma is the stuff of stars, it is the most common state of matter, making up about 99% of the observable universe.
So the sun is a very, very hot ionized plasma with a temperature of 15 million degrees Celsius in its core, 6,000 degrees at the surface, a little bit cooler, but still very hot. In the center, you have fusion reactions of hydrogen atoms, which releases an enormous amount of energy in the form of radiation and light, and of charged particles. The charged particles form the solar wind, which expands and flows out of the sun's surface and starts traveling into space and impacting on anything it will find on its way.
So we're going to be talking about solar events that science has discovered occurs not only in our star but in other star systems on a cyclic, in a cyclic nature. That these solar cycles also have an effect on the Earth, sometimes causing polar shifts, but definitely driving crazy weather, volcanoes, and other geological types of events. 360-degree mass coronal ejection, where it sends solar matter in all directions. And this occurs on a cycle every 25,000 years, 12,000 years, 4,000 years, different intensities. And it's kind of like a pulse that we're finding out that other stars have. We've noticed that Alpha Centauri had a flash not too long ago. And a couple of other stars that we've been tracking have periodic flashes. So we're finding out that these stars are releasing pressure so that they don't go supernova at some point. They're having smaller novas to release mass and pressure, more earthquakes. All of these things are signs of the times, so to speak, but it's all scientifically explainable. They're side effects of this energetic wave coming in. And around the time of these super flares is also the time of when we have more open contact with our cosmic cousins. They're allowed to come down and mingle with us in a way that will not interfere with our civilization, because basically it would be a civilization-ending event, this type of a solar event, since we're a technological civilization.
And began to walk through these long, tall, skinny corridors. We found ourselves in a huge arena, and all around us were beings of all different types that were obviously much, much more advanced than us. We had been briefed that this was some sort of a grand meeting of over 60 different genetic farmer ET groups that have been manicuring humanity for a long time. We were handed a smart glass pad, and you use a mental component to activate it. All information that you would ever want is at your fingertips, literally. We began to see more and more information on these smart glass pads about 22 genetic programs that have been going on Earth to develop humanity and to help us get to a point to ascend to our higher consciousness level.
It is almost the end of the winter, and you've woken up to a cool house. which is weird because you left the heater on all night. You turn on the light, it's not working. Actually, the coffee maker, the TV, none of them are working. Life outside also seems to have stopped. There are no schools, most of the businesses are shut, and there are no working trains. This is not the opening scene of a zombie apocalypse movie. This is what happened in March 1989 in the Canadian province of Quebec when the power grid lost power.
I mean, for example, in 1989, there was a solar flare that knocked out the Quebec power grid, and it cost many billions of dollars. And what's happened is the Quebec government has now put in the protective measures. So if that happens again, the power grid stays up. The rest of the world's power grid is not protected.
Well, yeah, there is a super wave on the way from the center of the galaxy. It's 23,000 light years travel distance, and I believe there's not one but several on their way towards us. Super wave consists of cosmic ray electrons, gamma rays, X-rays, light, radio waves across the whole spectrum, along with a gravity wave. And this is all traveling at the speed of light towards our solar system. In fact, it propagates throughout the whole galaxy, sort of like a spherical shell traveling out from the center of the galaxy.
99% of ordinary matter in the universe is in the plasma state. Most stars are made of plasma, and we want to use this state to propel our rockets into space. So plasma is the fourth fundamental state of matter, starting from solid to liquid to gas to plasma by raising the temperature. Just imagine an ice cube which would melt in your hand to become water as a liquid. You could then boil this water in a kettle and get water vapor, and you could put more energy and heat into this water vapor to dissociate and ionize the water molecules so that they could reach the high temperatures of the plasma state.
Oh, but that's not all. Plasma is the fourth state of matter on Earth. How come? Well, in a nutshell, you have an ice cube, which is a solid. If we heat it up, the ice cube will melt and dissolve into a liquid. Continue to heat it up, and the liquid will slowly evaporate, transforming into a gas. So, what if we continue to provide heat into this gas? Well, the temperature reaches several thousand degrees, and this gas will be ionized. The vast majority of the molecules or atoms left will only have a nucleus since the electrons have separated and moved independently. This ionized gas is a mixture of electrons, neutral molecules, and positively and negatively charged ions, which move chaotically. And there you have plasma.
Yeah, remember Alex? Remember? Hey, remember Ghostbusters? Oh, I remember. Remember Slimy?
Plasma is the state of matter that consists of a mass of free electrons and positively charged particles called cations mixed together. Plasma has neither a specific shape nor a consistent volume. In other words, plasma can easily flow into and take the shape of a container and will expand, redistributing itself to evenly fill that container.
You look at the past to understand the future. In this case, you're dealing with a cyclic phenomenon. And we have the ice core record from both Antarctica and Greenland.
Although the properties of plasma are similar to those of gases, plasma and gases are not the same thing. In plasma, electrons are released from their orbits around a nucleus, creating a soup of free electrons and nuclei.
We've all heard of gamma ray bursts. And yes. In fact, some scientists have theorized that the gamma rays are accompanied by charged particles coming along with them. That it's actually charged particles that generate the gamma rays on the way. And this is what a superwave is, except on a much larger scale. Instead of a burst just of a fraction of a second, we're dealing with something that could continue for hundreds, even thousands of years.
Fortunately for us, Earth is also a big dipole magnet with the north and the south pole. And this creates a protective magnetic shield around the atmosphere, which is called the magnetosphere. And this shield limits the impact of the solar wind onto Earth. And this interaction can be seen in the polar regions in the north and south poles, and you can see these beautiful northern and southern lights from Norway or from Canada or from Antarctica.
Yeah, but we lose our magnetic field for a significant period of time. Yeah, it would have catastrophic consequences for animal life on planet Earth. And it's one thing we notice is we got our strong dipole magnetic field just before God created the first animals. I mean, the timing was remarkable.
The small event that happened 5,300 years ago, that was just a little spike, and was easily missed. It was only seen because this particular researcher did a very detailed study of the core, and they found it. Without remarking what it was, I was the one that called attention to it. At the same time, another researcher found the climate cooled inexplicably at that time and became dry. In fact, in the Andes, they found Lonnie Thompson, glaciologist who I worked with at the time I was doing my PhD research. He was the one who sent me samples from the Camp Century ice core that I had analyzed.
So a plasma is a very hot ionized gas which contains light and photons and charged particles, the negative electrons, and the positive ions, and sometimes negative ions.
Because these charged particles are loose, plasma easily conducts electricity and both produces and responds to magnetic fields. Plasma is created when a gas is either exposed to a high temperature or when high voltage electricity is passed through it. The heat or electricity makes the atoms in the gas move so quickly and collide so violently with one another that electrons are knocked from their orbits. Because of the way they are created, plasmas are sometimes called ionized gases.
These charged particles give the plasma very interesting conductive properties, similar to those of metals. But a naturally occurring plasma familiar to us all is lightning strikes. These are very powerful, with up to 1 billion volts of electricity in the air looking for a path to ground or to Earth. So when lightning strikes, it heats and ionizes the air along its path, and you get a plasma.
In this case, the small event didn't cause an ice age, but it did cause cooling. But in a larger event, we see these events occurring at the time of the initiation of the last ice age. You see them lining up not only with the beginning of the ice age, but also with the ending, and with major climatic transitions in between. So there's a definite connection between climate and the superwaves.
And you know what? This is the simplest plasma rocket you can think of. This is the fluorescent tube again. We can radiate energy into it, ionize the gas, make a plasma. If you chop one end off, the plasma will expand into space. A force will be created in the opposite direction. This is the principle of your plasma rocket. It will start traveling into space. When the plasma exits this rocket, it looks like this photo there. Why do we want to use plasma rockets? Because they are very fuel efficient. You can actually go from Earth orbit to the Moon orbit with just 80 kilos of gas, like what you would have in your car tank. And what we're trying to do, we are trying to accelerate the plasma before it exits the rocket to further decrease this fuel consumption and increase the thrust.
What this paper from a Harvard astronomer indicates is that as long as the reversal is relatively short-lived, decades or hundreds of years, it's okay for life on planet Earth. However, it's not okay for a high-technology civilization, and it'd definitely be worth our while to spend some money to protect the power grids.
No, they haven't arrived. We're in the eye of the hurricane, sort of the period, the nice sunny period in between the storm, before the storm arrives. And the thing is that you can't see them coming because they travel at the speed of light. So it's a phenomenon, it's totally without warning, just like a gamma ray burst. They only know it when their detectors pick it up, and then they're able to locate where it came from.
So how about we make a plasma or mini lightning strike now on stage?
Fortis, prepare to launch all plasma torpedoes simultaneously. Fire torpedoes.
I'm going to use this device, which is called a Tesla coil. This was invented by Nikola Tesla over a century ago. He essentially gave us alternating current or electricity as we have it now. So when I turn this on, what happens is it produces very, very fast oscillating signal here, about 10 oscillations per microsecond, so very fast, but it is rather large voltage. We're going to try and see if we can create a glow. Look at that. So what's happening here, it's called a skin effect. The current is going through the plasma. It's actually being carried at the surface of your skin and to ground. But you're right? And if I put my hand here, I get half of the current. This is a radio frequency signal, a bit like a radio antenna, radio emitter. So it travels at the surface of the skin, called the skin effect. We use this in our plasma rockets. You can see that the plasma doesn't go past your hand, so the current is going this way, and I'm not getting anything. If I put this here, I'm getting most of the current, you're getting a little bit. Let's try with you, just like this. There we go. Do you feel anything? No. That's good. So if you look at that, we can get both going. Excellent.
Plasma is the first state of matter in the universe because 99.9% of all visible matter in the universe exists in the state of plasma. The sun is a giant plasma. Stars are also luminous spheres of plasma. The lightning that strikes during a thunderstorm or the magical phenomenon of the aurora borealis are also plasma.
And in the event that signs of a superwave were about to be arriving, that we would go into high gear alerting. It's sort of like like when you have the first warning signs of an earthquake, that you start alerting everyone. And we were dealing here with a phenomenon that few people knew about. So I felt obligated to try to do my best to inform people about this new concept.
George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, didn't really fool you with his science fiction. Remember the colorful lightsaber? Yes, it's plasma. Due to the control of the magnetic field located in the hilt, the arc light has a fixed shape.
That really people should be brought in from outside to help on this. You know, this is something we're, you know, why keep it secret? We all want to help out to prepare for the next event.